There is a cell in the darkest corner of the universe, without light, without sound, without a name on the door. Only a being and the weight of everything the world denied him. But to understand why he is there, we have to go back to the beginning, to a planet that no longer exists, to a night that no one remembers except him. Tundera, the most powerful planet in its galaxy, home to the Tunderians, the fiercest feline warriors the universe had ever seen, a civilization built on strength, honor, and blood. Here, the stars were not promises. They were inheritances if you were born into the right family. But Tundera had another side, one that the palace books never mentioned. The slums, the place where the cast-offs lived, those without a last name, those without a future. There, in the darkness beneath the shining city, something was about to be born that the entire universe would remember. That night, there was no celebration, no clan gathered, no name prepared. Only a young mother and a baby who was born different in his left eye. A black star, not like those in the sky, but like a wound, like a warning. No one knows exactly what happened that night, but at dawn, the baby was alone, without a name, without a mother, with nothing. Only the mark in his eye and the cold of Tundera around him. The universe had already made its first decision about him, and he still couldn't even speak. The years went by. No one adopted him, no one claimed him. The other children called him by 1,000 names. None of them was his name, because he didn't have one, except for the one he carved for himself in his mind, without a last name, without a clan, just Mon. And Mon learned the only thing Tundera taught him. In this world, if you don't have claws, you don't eat. He lost many fights before winning his first, but when he won, something changed in his eyes. It wasn't joy, it was recognition. As if, for the first time, the universe had told him, you exist, and Mon decided that no one would ever take that feeling away from him again. At night, when hunger kept him still, Mon would look at the palace from afar. Inside lived those whom the world had chosen, those who had a name from birth, those who never wondered if they were welcome. He didn't hate them. Not yet, not yet. He just watched them and made a promise, without words, without witnesses, just him and the night of Tundera. Someday I will be remembered too. But Tundera had its own plans. The planet had been creaking from within for years. No one in the palace wanted to listen. Those who lived in the slums felt it in their bones every night. Mon felt it more than anyone, as if the darkness he carried in his eye recognized the darkness that was coming. What was coming wasn't just going to destroy buildings, it was going to destroy everything that Tundera creía ser. Eso era Mon, un niño sin nombre, en un planeta que nunca lo quiso. Mientras Tundera ardía, nadie pensó en él, nadie lo buscó, nadie lo lloró, porque para el mundo, él nunca había existido. Pero los universos cometen errores, y el error de Tundera fue este: lo dejaron solo. Y cuando dejas solo a alguien así, le das todo el tiempo del mundo para convertirse en algo que nadie va a poder detener. Tundera no iba a sobrevivir. Ya no era un secreto. Las grietas en el suelo llevaban Tundera had been growing for days. The palace towers creaked at night, and the sky that was always red was now black. The kingdom's scientists had been shouting the same warning for weeks. The planet's core was collapsing. No one in the palace wanted to, because listening to them meant accepting that Tundera, the most powerful planet in its galaxy, was dying. And the powerful never accept that something is ending for them. But that night, there was nothing left to deny. Fusion started in the north, then in the south, then everywhere at the same time. The Golden Palace, that Mon had looked at all his life from the alleys, began to collapse, as if it had always been made of sand. The evacuation ships were taking off en masse, one on top of the other. Entire families pushing to get in, guards abandoning their posts, nobles running without their crowns and without pride. For the first time in the history of Tundera, the palace and the slums were the same. Everyone was running. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was alone. Mon ran through the chaos without a destination. He had no ship, no family calling out to him, no one to shout his name in the crowd. So, to the world, he was still the boy who had never existed. And yet, he ran, because something inside him had never given up. He wasn't going to start. Now, that was when he saw him. A boy his age, alone in the middle of the chaos, separated from his group by the explosions. Well-dressed, golden hair, eyes that saw the world as his own, even though that world was burning. Clearly from the palace, clearly one of those who always had everything. Now, just as lost as Mon, the two looked at each other. An eternal second, while Tundera disintegrated around them and the golden boy reached out his hand to him. Mon looked at it, just looked at it, because no one in his whole life had ever reached out a hand to him, and he didn't know what to do with that gesture. He didn't know if it was real. He didn't know if it was a trap. He knew absolutely nothing, except that that hand existed, and that he didn't know how to take it. An explosion between the two of them, the ground opening up, fate deciding what Mon couldn't decide. Guards appeared out of nowhere and dragged the golden boy toward an evacuation ship. Mon saw them take off from within the flames, saw them fly away toward the stars, toward a future that clearly wasn't his. Amid the flames, Mon saw something, a small, half-destroyed ship, abandoned in the middle of the street, without a pilot, without an owner, just like him. He had never driven anything in his life. He had never needed to. He got in, pressed buttons without knowing what they did. He took off just as the ground beneath him disappeared, exploded behind him. The only world he had ever known disappeared in a second. Mon didn't cry or scream. He just stared at the flames where the planet had been and made his only remaining choice, to move on alone, as it had always been, as maybe it would always be. The ship had no destination, only inertia, only the deepest silence Mon had ever heard in his life. And he had heard many silences, but this one was different. This was the silence of the entire universe, telling him what Tundera always had. He didn't exist, didn't matter, and had no place anywhere. During the first days, Mon touched everything he could. Buttons he didn't understand, screens he couldn't read, systems that failed one by one, as if the ship was also giving up. Fuel was dropping, the oxygen was dropping, the temperature was dropping, everything was dropping except his anger, which for some reason was just as intense as the day he left Tundera. No food, no water, with only the flames of a dead planet lighting up the ship's rear window. That's when Mon did something he had never done before. He spoke to someone who couldn't answer him. He spoke to Tundera, to the emptiness where there used to be a planet. He told him everything he could never say when he existed, that he never loved him, that he never saw him, that he threw him away like trash in an alley and kept spinning around his sun without losing any sleep, that he deserved it, that the universe makes mistakes and Tundera was one of them. He didn't cry. Mon didn't know how to cry, but he spoke for hours in that dying ship, until he lost his voice and his strength. He was searching the ship when he found something behind a rear panel. A capsule small, designed for a single Okian technology, the same used by the nobility for long journeys, the same that the Golden Child had used to cross the universe toward a future that awaited him. Mon looked at it for a long time. He had no other choice. The ship was dying. Space does not forgive. And something, perhaps the same dark force that pulsed in his eye since he was born, told him that his story didn't end here, that the universe still owed him something. He entered the capsule. The systems activated on their own as if they had been waiting for him. The ship kept drifting in the silence of space without a pilot, without direction, with no one knowing that inside, something slept inside, and the universe still didn't understand what it was. Years, decades, maybe more went by, until the gravity of a forgotten galaxy began to pull the ship toward it. A galaxy without law, without a known name, without a god to claim it. The Limbo galaxy. No one survives their first day in Limbo. That's not a warning. It's a statistic carved into the walls of every bar, every cell, every ruin in that cursed galaxy. The capsule had crossed the threshold of the most dangerous galaxy in the known universe. And inside it, a Tunderian boy with a red mark on his eye was about to open his eyes for the first time. In a world that didn't know the word mercy. A world that didn't need it either. The hatch opened and the smell came first. Limbo doesn't smell like space. It smells like burnt metal, like sulfurous rock, like centuries of violence accumulated in the air, like something that has no name in any Tunderian language because Tundera never produced anything so dark. The air was thick, almost visible, with particles of red dust floating, as if the atmosphere itself were bleeding, as if the entire planet were an open wound that never finished healing. Mon set foot on Limbo's ground, and Limbo responded. 3 figures emerged from among the rocks before his eyes finished adjusting to the light. It was nothing he had ever seen before. Creatures of Limbo, hardened, scarred, with the look of someone who has already buried everything they ever cared about. They wanted the capsule. On Limbo, technology is worth more than life. It's always been that way. Since the galaxy has existed, its inhabitants learned that metal doesn't abandon you, doesn't betray you, doesn't die. That's why the capsule was worth more than the being that had come out of it. That's why the 3 figures didn't even look him in the eyes at first. Mon didn't speak, didn't ask, didn't negotiate. He responded in the only way he knew, the only way he had been taught in the lower districts, where words solved nothing and fists did. And Limbo understands it too, because it's the only universal language that exists in that galaxy. What happened in the next 30 seconds was forever etched in the memory of those 3 creatures. The creatures withdrew, not out of respect yet, but for something more primitive than that, instinct. The same instinct that tells any predator when the prey they've chosen isn't really prey. Limbo has an unwritten rule that everyone learns before they even learn to walk. When something looks at you from the ground without fear, don't keep attacking it. Because what has no fear also has no limits. Mon got up, spat blood onto Limbo's red earth. He didn't wipe it off. He looked at his hands for a second. The same hands were useless on Tundera. Hands of the unwanted boy. He clenched them into fists and for the first time looked to the horizon. Limbo's lunar star hung motionless in the sky like a giant eye, red pulsing, almost alive. As if it had been awake for centuries waiting for exactly this moment. Exactly for this being. Mon looked at it and the mark in his eye pulsed in exactly the same rhythm. He didn't know it yet. He couldn't know it. But in that moment, something in the fabric of Limbo changed in an imperceptible way, as if the entire galaxy had recognized something in that boy, standing alone in the middle of nowhere, covered in red dust and his own blood, without an ally, without a name anyone would remember, without absolutely anything except that mark, except that fire. Tundera rejected him from the moment he was born, treated him like a mistake of the universe, like something that shouldn't exist. Limbo had just recognized him, and that was much more dangerous than any welcome. No one arrives at the Sinistar diner by accident. Mon pushed the door open, and the entire Sinistar fell silent, not because he was imposing, not because he was big or threatening, but because he was a child. A tiny skinny Tunderian with torn clothes and a red mark on his eye, standing at the entrance of the most dangerous bar in Felonia. And then the laughter began. First one, then another, then all of them. Creatures from 12 different planets laughing at the same joke. A lost boy who had walked into the wrong place. Mon didn't flinch, didn't lower his gaze. He walked inside as if the laughter were just wind, and the creature behind the bar threw a glass in his face. The laughter grew louder. Someone grabbed him by the shoulder, someone else pushed him, and in less than 30 seconds Mon was on the ground surrounded by creatures looking down at him. That's when he saw it, just inches from his face, chained to a black metal column. There was a creature unlike anything else. Half reptile, half something without a name, with thick chains on its wrists and its ankles. Their eyes met, and the slave who had spent decades staring at the floor of the Sinistar reached out his hand from his chains, not to save him, just to help him get up. Mon stood up, and what happened in the next few minutes was forever etched in the memory of the Sinistar, because Mon didn't run away. He didn't apologize, he didn't negotiate, he wiped his face, looked at everyone who had laughed, and started. He didn't win the first fight or the second, but he didn't stop. Every time he fell to the ground, he got back up with the red mark shining even brighter. As if pain was fuel, as if Felonia was testing him and he refused to fail, as if that red star, like his red mark, like his origin, was lending him its strength, making him bigger, heavier, more powerful. When it was over, 3 creatures couldn't get up. The rest watched in silence. The laughter had died. Mon was standing in the center of the Sinistar, covered in dust and sweat, breathing heavily. And in that silence that in villainy has only one meaning. He turned toward the black metal column, looked at Esclavo's chains, and tore them off with a single pull. That night, they left the Sinistar together. No one stopped them. No one said anything. Slave took Mon to a place only he knew, hidden among the rocks of villainy. Far from everything, far from everyone. A place where no one would come looking for them. A place where Mon could grow, and while Limbo slept, while Villainy remained the most dangerous and most forgotten asteroid in the entire galaxy, something was changing in that hideout among the rocks. Something that didn't have a name yet. Something that Villainy didn't know she had created. And while Mon slept that night for the first time without anyone else's chains or destroyed planets over his head, Slave watched him from the darkness, knowing what neither of them could say out loud yet. Time doesn't pass the same way in Villainy as it does in the rest of the galaxy. In Villainy, time isn't measured in years, it's measured in territory. Who controls what? Who owes what to whom? And in the aftermath of that night on the Sinistar, Mon measured time in the only way. Villainy understands by blows, by conquest, by reputation earned inch by inch on the most dangerous asteroid in Limbo. Slave built, Mon expanded. It was a simple, perfect partnership. Slave took scrap from Villainy, the remains of destroyed ships, abandoned metals, the forgotten technology of civilizations that no longer existed, and he built antennas, detectors, tools, everything Mon needed to operate in the shadows of Felonia, without anyone knowing exactly where he was or what he was planning. And Mon operated. There was no cargo in Felonia that didn't pay its share. There was no business in the Sinistar that didn't know his name. There wasn't a creature on that asteroid who didn't remember the night when a native of Tundera emptied the most dangerous bar in Limbo with just his hands. But it was Slave who noticed something that Mon hadn't noticed. In every fight, in every confrontation, in every moment when Mon got close to the edge, the eye would shine, not just red, but white, blinding. And in those moments, Mon was different, faster, stronger, more than what his body should allow him to be, as if something external was fueling him. Slave took weeks to confirm the pattern, but when he did, he said nothing. He just watched more, because Slave had noticed something else. The shine in Mon's eye and the pulse of Limbo's lunar star happened at exactly the same time. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a connection. The problem was the distance. Near the lunar star, the power was real, measurable, brutal. Far from it, it was just a flash. And Slave, that snake everyone had ignored for decades, that being no one else smart enough to have a thought of his own, began to ask the question that would change Limbo's history forever. How do you take a star wherever you want? While Slave was thinking, Mon was growing, not just in size. Although that too, the skinny teenager from Tundera was turning into something different. Felonia had sculpted him year after year, and his reputation grew along with him. First Felonia knew him, then the sector. Then the planets near the light-year limit started to hear the name. Not with respect yet. With something more useful than respect. With caution. Mon didn't recruit out of loyalty. Mon recruited out of convenience. The first was Bucephalus, a bionic bull who had destroyed 3 law ships in a single day, and he had nowhere to go. Mon offered him a place. Bucephalus accepted because he had no other choice. The second was Vendaval, an alien with a tuning fork who could control the weather, wanted in 12 different systems. Mon found him before the law did. Vendaval owed him his freedom. That was enough too, one by one, without ceremonies, without speeches. Just the same simple question that Mon asked each one. Do you want to keep running or do you want to stop running? No one said no. And then the day came when Mon looked at the horizon of Felonia for the last time. Felonia had become too small for Mon. The whole asteroid worshipped him. There was nothing left to conquer there. And an empire that stops growing starts to die. So Mon made a decision. He needed a planet of his own, one that no one else could touch. Slave already had the answer ready. He had been waiting for the right moment to suggest it. For Slave, Tenebria wasn't a hostile planet, it was a paradise. Everything he needed to build what he had been secretly planning for months was there waiting among these cracks. A chamber, capable of capturing the power of the lunar star and channeling it directly to Mon. But before they could claim that technology, they had to claim the planet. And the planet had an owner. The gang landed among rusty scrap and the hulls of destroyed ships. Total silence, too much silence. Then the ground shook, and from a deep crater emerged the creature that had sunk each one of those ships, a giant space squid. 5 tentacles capable of tearing metal as if it were paper, thick skin, merciless eyes, a roar that shook rocks for miles. It had been the sole owner of Tenebria for years and had no intention of sharing it. Bucepha charged at it first. A tentacle grabbed him in midair and smashed him against a wall of scrap. Vendaval unleashed his entire storm on the beast and barely managed to slow it down for a moment. The creature knew no fear. It only knew instinct and a hunger for territory. Then Mon advanced alone, fist against tentacle, strength against overwhelming force. The beast slammed him against the ground again and again, nearly defeating him. With his body battered and his breathing ragged, Mon looked up at the sky, at the lunar star pulsing above Tenebria. Lunar star of Limbo, give me strength, give me the power to be invincible. A small ray burst forth like an eruption, lighting up the entire sky of Tenebria. The light enveloped him completely. His body expanded with a strength even he didn't know, and something awoke inside him. Something that had been dormant since Tundera, claws, pure instinct. The beast that had always been there, waiting for the moment. Minute after minute, blow after blow, Mon stopped fighting against the creature and started fighting for it. Not to destroy it, but to break its wild instinct and bend it to his will. When it finally collapsed before him, panting, Mon didn't kill it. He looked it in the eyes and understood exactly what it was for. After that change, Mon no longer existed. Mon had been born. The lunar star had given him power, but it had also awakened something more dangerous in him. An ambition he had never known before. He had already tasted that power once, and now he wanted it all. That thirst for more was just the first spark of what Monstruón would eventually become, the most feared and powerful creature in the universe. That night, while the gang finished taking over Tenebria without anyone able to stop them, Esclavo worked tirelessly on something that didn't have a name yet, a chamber designed to capture the light of the lunar star, to concentrate it. And along with those blueprints, he also drew a red and orange armor with laser cannons and a saddle for the beast that now slept subdued in the fortress. Esclavo wasted no time using the remains of the ships that had been stranded for years on the surface of Tenebria. He began to build the chamber directly beneath the star-shaped opening that split the planet in two. There, the light of the lunar star entered unobstructed, straight into the hollow heart of Tenebria, piece by piece, wire by wire. Esclavo built a structure that no engineer from Limbo could have imagined, a metallic throne surrounded by mirrors and receivers designed to capture every particle of red light that fell from the sky. Unwatched in silence, without helping, without rushing. He knew that what Esclavo was building was not just a machine. It was the next step of something that could no longer be undone. Meanwhile, Bucefalo and Vendaval were taking care of another task. Destructor, still subdued but awake, was led to an improvised workshop among the scrap. Something in Monstruón's gaze had convinced him that fighting no longer made sense. When the transformation chamber was finished, Esclavo made the final adjustment and stepped back. On climbed the metal steps and sat on the throne, exactly at the point where all the light converged. Nothing happened. Esclavo knew that Monstruón already possessed the power of the lunar star, but power without control was still just that, wasted power. The question that kept him awake wasn't how to give him more power, but how to focus the power he already had. The answer had always been right in front of him. The star mark in Monstruón's eye wasn't just a scar. Esclavo designed a lens capable of amplifying the light entering directly through that eye, multiplying every particle of the lunar star that managed to reach it. And along with the lens, he designed something else. An armor that wouldn't be worn but would fuse with his body by his own will, only when he summoned it. Total protection, total power, all with a single word. And he didn't stop there. If Monstruón was going to depend on light to fully transform, he needed something that would protect him even without it. He designed some shoulder pads and a reinforced breastplate, crowned with sharp spikes. A light armor for his natural form, capable of giving him an advantage in any fight without needing the chamber. When everything was finally ready, the lens, the shoulder pads, the chamber, they prepared for the first real test. But before they could begin, something interrupted the moment. An emergency call came in. It was Vendaval. He had returned to Felonia on his own business and was now under attack. A new group of police officers had arrived on the asteroid, better armed, better trained than any previous patrol, and leading them giving the orders was an officer no one knew. He called himself Telescopio and flew toward Felonia as soon as he heard Vendaval's distress call. But he arrived too late. The bar was no longer a bar. Only rubble, smoke, and a heavy silence remained. And Vendaval had disappeared. Among the wreckage, a groan stopped him. Under a twisted beam, he found a half-buried mercenary, his face battered and his breathing labored. Monstruón demanded to know where they had been taken. But the mercenary, barely conscious, only asked to be pulled out first. Monstruón freed him with a yank. The mercenary stood up with difficulty and pointed north. One was already turning to leave when the mercenary stopped him cold. He warned him the place was a death trap, that even with all his power he would be torn apart before he ever reached the door. Monstruón asked what he proposed. The mercenary said he knew the right person. Monstruón immediately became suspicious and demanded to know why he should trust a stranger. The mercenary bluntly admitted the Hawks took his ship and arsenal, and he only wanted them back. Helping Monstruón would benefit him too. He added with disdain that in that world everyone was equally treacherous. Monstruón asked him to speak. The mercenary, who called himself Gunner, explained that the person they needed was called Molecular, someone capable of taking the form of anyone he touched, able to walk right through the front door without raising suspicion and disable the security from inside. Without him, it would be a massacre. With him, an open door. Gunner led Monstruón and Slave down to the tunnels beneath Felonia, an underground market where ideas were bought and sold, identities, faces, and silence. At the back, among the shadows, they found Molecular waiting, already warned of their arrival. For a moment, he dropped the form he used to go unnoticed and his true body emerged. a figure made of copper-toned metallic spheres, glowing faintly in the darkness of the tunnel. Only his shadow remained strangely motionless, no matter what form he took. A flaw he himself could not control and kept as his only dangerous secret. One asked why he would do this. Artillero replied that he owed him one. Years ago, he had gotten him out of a problem he would never have escaped from on his own. Molecular said nothing. He just nodded, and his body once again took the form of an ordinary hawk guard, perfect in every detail except for that shadow that refused to lie. One stared at him, weighing whether to trust a stranger capable of becoming anyone. Finally, he turned to the sky and saw a distant star. Somewhere in that fortress, his henchmen were being held prisoner. The war was about to begin, and Monstruón knew he needed something more than his current form to win it. He sat in the chair of the Monstruón transformation chamber, while Salisla activated the Tenebria thrusters, aligning the planet until the light of Limbo's lunar star shone fully through the star-shaped opening. On closed his eyes and spoke the words that would mark the beginning of a brutal confrontation. It's the lunar star of Limbo. Give me the strength, the power, the ability to be invincible. The light enveloped him completely, and when he stood up, he was no longer the same. His red and white armor had fused to his body, the spiked crown sat atop his head, and power coursed through every part of him like contained fire. Before leaving, he fired a direct beam from his marked eye at Destructor, and the colossal squid was instantly covered with red and orange armor plates, laser cannons emerging from its sides, and a saddle ready for battle. With Destructor equipped and the full team on board, they set off toward the prison fortress, where Molecular was already waiting for them, disguised as a hawk guard, greeting his fellow guards as if he were just one of them. At the exact moment they let their guard down, he deactivated the locks from the control panel, and the massive doors opened with a metallic roar. One went in first, already transformed, followed by Artillero, who fired cover shots from behind, shouting that he was only looking out for his own skin. The hallway was filled with silver-armored guards in a matter of seconds. On met them with blows that bent the metal of their armor, moving forward without stopping, clearing a path toward the cells at the back. There, chained to the walls, they found Bucéfalo and Vendaval weak but alive, and next to them, in a special reinforced cell, a prisoner covered in rusty metal discs who introduced himself through clenched teeth as Varón Sierra. One broke the chains with a single hand, and Varón Sierra, once freed, didn't wait for any thanks. He spun his discs like living saws and charged at the guards who were arriving as reinforcements, slicing through the air with a metallic screech that chilled the blood of anyone who heard it. Bucéfalo, regaining his strength, charged with his bionic horns, knocking down entire walls, while Vendaval summoned lightning from his tuning fork to electrocute the last squads trying to block their way. One by one, the Hawks fell until only one figure remained at the back of the main hall. Telescopio, Supreme Commander, with his golden armor intact and his gaze fixed on Monstruón, without fear, without backing down. The battle that followed shook the very foundations of the entire fortress, blow after blow, neither giving ground. Driven by the accumulated fury of everything he had lost, landed a direct swipe against the left side of Telescopio's face. The commander fell to his knees, his face badly beaten, no longer having the strength to get up. Breathing heavily, gazed at the fortress in silence, convinced that the threat of the Galactic Hawks ended there forever. His team gathered around him, victorious, ready to return home. But among the rubble, hidden under a fallen metal plate, Telescopio's chest was still rising and falling, slowly, barely noticeable. No one knew how long he remained unconscious among the rubble of the prison fortress. When he finally opened his remaining eye, the first thing he saw were shadows running around him, urgent voices shouting medical orders. He managed to hear fragments. His face was badly beaten. The left eye was lost forever. They had to stabilize him before it was too late. But that physical pain was nothing compared to the other one, the one that truly tore him apart inside, his entire squadron. The Galactic Hawks he had led for years, annihilated without putting up any real resistance. He didn't even manage to stop the monster that destroyed them. That thought was the last thing that crossed his mind before everything turned to darkness. The years that followed were a silent civil war against his own body. Surgery after surgery, endless therapy. He had to relearn how to move with half his face covered by a temporary plate. But while his body healed slowly, something different was growing in his mind. From his hospital bed, with one eye fixed on the screen, he watched the news coming in from every corner of the universe. Attacks. Cities reduced to ruins, chaos out of control, and at the center of every report, always the same red silhouette that no one could stop. Monstruón had become the most wanted criminal in the galaxy, and with every new attack, Telescopio's obsession grew a little more. He stopped watching those broadcasts as news and started studying them, the way a hunter studies his prey, analyzing every hit, every pattern, looking for something everyone else had overlooked. Night after night, he went over the same recordings. The day of the final surgery arrived without warning. Telescopio remained still as the medical team installed the bionic lens that would forever replace his eye, settling into his skull with a mechanical hiss. The surgeon explained to him, satisfied, that the improvements went beyond just restoring his vision. That eye could now analyze and focus energy patterns with a precision impossible for a natural one. Telescopio listened in silence. And as the lens powered on for the first time, something clicked in his mind. Focus energy. Focus power. The same words he had been repeating for months in his own analysis about Monstruón's vulnerability. An idea took shape. As simple as it was terrifying. If his new eye could focus external energy, maybe it could also interrupt it. Maybe it could also shut it down. He didn't say anything to the surgeon. He just smiled, cold and crooked. And for the first time since the attack, he felt that the wait was almost over. It's been weeks since Telescopio left his rehab bed, and he dedicated each one of them to a single purpose: catching Monstruón. He already has a plan, although he doesn't share it with anyone, not even out loud to himself, as if naming it too soon could ruin it. What happened in prison the day he lost his eye, he hasn't let go of since then. It wasn't just his body that was marked that night, his whole squad. The Hawks who accompanied him on watch when Monstruón broke through the walls of his cell. They were reduced to names engraved on a memorial plaque. He was the only one who made it out alive, and that idea, more than the lost eye, is the wound that truly never heals. Every time someone mentions forming a team for the next watchtower, Telescope remembers the exact weight of holding that plaque in his hands. And he decides, once again, that this time no one else will pay the price for accompanying him. That's why he doesn't call anyone. The Galactic Hawks offer reinforcements. They insist that the mission is too big for one man. But Telescope rejects them one by one, with the same cold excuse every time: this is between Monstruón and him. And that's how it's going to end. No one else will carry another plaque because of him. Before locking himself away with his calculations, he visits the memorial one last time, just as he does whenever a plan forms. He doesn't pray or say any names out loud. He just stands in front of the plaque long enough to remind himself why this time it has to be different. The next plaque, if there ever is one, won't have any names other than his own. So he locks himself away with the only company he trusts, his data. He confirms what he already suspected, that the source powering Monstruón isn't spread throughout his body, but concentrated, channeled, and it always lights up at the exact same spot. The marked eye, the same side where he himself lost his own. Limbo's lunar star doesn't transform a whole man. It does so through that gaze, and that's the problem Telescopio can't solve. To stop him at the root, it would be enough to rip out the energy lens embedded in that eye, or completely shut down the source that feeds him. The first option is impossible, as long as he's transformed and protected by that almost invincible body. He already tried it once, and only managed to make him stagger for a moment. The second option is even more absurd. No one can extinguish a star that has been burning for hundreds of years. Not even with all the technology he can gather by himself. He keeps coming back to the same dead end for days. The answer comes, as so many times before, through a screen. A news broadcast interrupts the regular programming to announce an astronomical phenomenon that no one in Limbo expected. A total lunar eclipse will cover the region in the coming days, completely darkening the sky for several hours. Telescope listens to the news, standing still, motionless, while the missing piece finally fits into place on its own. Nature has just given him what no technology could build, the exact window he had been searching for weeks. The smile on his face at the alert panel fades quickly. Telescope already knows the date and exact time when Felonia will go dark, and now he only has one more piece to move before the countdown begins. That same night, he makes one last call. He asks if everything is ready. Someone answers yes, that they're ready to dance. He replies that he just hopes they arrive on time. Golden Hawk taking off. Runway 5, the voice responds and the signal cuts off. In the Limbo galaxy, a ship with the colors of the galactic hawks approaches Felonia, the place where the most dangerous criminals gather and which Monstruón already claims as his own. The slave is the first to notice it and runs to warn his master. One asks what the hawks are doing in his territory and orders them to go after them, since it's just one ship. His henchmen go out without hesitation to intercept it. With the way clear, the slave begins to prepare the transformation chamber as he was ordered. But something in the sky stops him mid-movement. Limbo's lunar star is losing its brightness, little by little, for no apparent reason. Monstruón notices it almost at the same time, and immediately understands what an eclipse means. And he orders the slave to hurry before the machine finishes powering up. A precise shot hits the control panel. A voice says, "Not so fast," and from the shadows, Telescope appears.
"See you, you were fooled, slave!"
One says he'll take care of it and moves straight toward him, while the slave stays behind, working on the damaged board, desperately trying to get the machine to respond again. Nothing responds. Between the damage to the panel and the light that keeps going out outside, the slave can't get the device to turn back on. Now standing in front of Telescopio, understands that this time there's no possible transformation. Instead of backing away, he smiles.
"I don't need to transform. Just as I am, I'll defeat you."
The fight breaks out without any warning. Without armor, Monstruón is still devastating. Pure brute strength, blow after blow, and between each impact, reclama que cómo se atreve a venir hasta su propio planeta, hasta su propia casa, a enfrentar a Monstruón. Le recuerda que pudo haberse ido, que pudo... Anyway. Telescopio doesn't stay quiet. Between every blow he takes, he shouts.
"I'm going to make. You pay. Monster, for every man, for every family. For the pain you made those women and children."
One doesn't let him finish. He asks him what he knows about real pain. Pain, he says, is being born alone, eating garbage on a planet he never belonged to, with no one wanting him from the day he was born. Pain is when even your own mother doesn't love you, when she looks at you once and decides you're not even worth the effort of keeping and throws you away like something useless. That's pain, Telescopio. The rest are just scratches. Yes, he's a monster, he admits, but he's the best, the most feared. Por primera vez en su vida, alguien siente algo por él. Respeto. Telescopio, ya casi sin fuerzas, apenas logra responder que eso no es respeto, que es miedo. Monstruón no se inmuta, prefiere el miedo, dice, antes que volver a ser invisible. Sigue golpeando, cada palabra convertida en fuerza, hasta que un rayo cruza el aire desde... slices through the air from behind, hitting him directly. It's not a physical strike, but something felt inside, reaching the energy in his body, even though he's not transformed.
Sorry for the delay, my friend. Ugh. This toy is heavy.
One starts to stagger, weakened from within, and finally Telescope sees the opportunity he was waiting for. He attacks with everything he's got, and now each blow carries a name, one for his team, another for his eye, another for every name engraved on that plaque. Monstruón falls to his knees, defeated.
"Finish me off now, once and for all. End the pain."
For a moment, there is complete silence. Telescope gets ready, and just before the end, you can barely hear the click of his eye. He turns to look at Monstruón and tells him no, that they are not the same, and orders Condor to arrest him. Condor, still processing what just happened, replies that he is independent, that he doesn't work for anyone, but this time he will. The eclipse continues its path over Felonia, the lunar star of Limbo, completely dark, and for the first time in years, the entire planet is left in darkness and silence. Finally subdued in the hands of the only two men who managed to stop him.